Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. Tonight's show is going to be rather unique because Pat Finn, my guest this evening, has been on the show a couple of times in the past, and each time about halfway into the show, he presents me with all kinds of difficulties because he doesn't want to answer my questions. So are you going to be good today?
Oh, always.
How are you now, Pat?
Good, good.
I've been trying to get you back on the show for years now, and finally I got you on again.
Well, I have free time since I retired recently after working 36 years with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad.
See that a little louder, a little slower?
I retired from the railroad after 36 years of playing freight train.
Playing freight trains?
Yes. Every little kid wants to grow up and play with the freight train.
Yeah. That should be some interesting stuff to talk about. Some of your adventures when you were making trains bump into each other and that kind of stuff.
We never bumped into each other, but yes. I worked in 5 different states with a lot of unique and strange individuals.
All right. We'll save that for later on. Let me finish my introduction. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don has been on for a number of years. And we're going to have it a little different tonight because Pat Finn is again, and I lost my train of thought. I warned you to let me slow down a little bit. You're going to talk about space and space travel some.
We can.
And other stuff. You saw my list of things we can talk about.
Yes.
All right. So, and you know, the show goes in 2 major parts. The bio part where I talk to you about who you are. And even though you told the viewers before, there's some new viewers now who haven't heard your stories before. So you have to start all over again.
Well, I'll try not to put them to sleep, Don.
You won't. And I have a poem that I wrote just the other day, and I want to read that later on during the show because you may find it interesting. So, and your name is, what's your real name?
You mean my full name?
I suppose.
Patrick Thomas Edward Finn.
How'd you get 4 names?
Because Irish Catholic, have the birthright.
Okay. Are you still Catholic?
Non-practicing.
Non-practicing. Oh, so okay. And you mentioned you're Irish?
Yes, Irish and German.
You're answering all the questions before I get to them. Okay. Anything significant about your cultural heritage that affects your performance in the world today?
No, I'm just a social misfit.
Social misfit.
Yes.
Catholic social misfit.
Yeah, I'm a mud.
How about your formal education?
Grade school, high school, Taggart High, college, PCC, Oregon State. Never graduated though.
Okay, how come?
Ran out of money and ambition.
It's going to be that kind of an evening, I can tell. Yeah. And you mentioned what you did before you retired a couple of weeks ago. You retired a couple of weeks ago, did you?
I've retired 5 months ago.
5 months ago.
July 1st was the last time I boarded a freight train and moved it from point A to point B with the help of 2 other people.
Do you miss it?
No, surprisingly not. I mean, after 35 years in train service and 36 years in the industry, I was ready to go.
Ready to go, huh?
Yes. I felt the railroad was holding me back, and it was time to move on, let the new generation take over. You know, I was one of the old dogs at work. It was time to learn some new tricks.
I was telling Ellery, about the director on the way over here, that you have some stories about your adventures working for the railroad company, and I was going to get you to tell some of those intimate stories that you shouldn't be telling the world, something private. I was telling him about the movies I've seen about trains and train wrecks and suspense things, and you were telling me how that's all Hollywood and it's all a bunch of BS. Is that true?
It's pretty much, yeah. We do that every day, before lunch.
So what are you doing in your retirement since 5 months ago?
I've done a little traveling, read a lot of books. I've been reading basically a book a week. I first started reading about Navy tactics and the battles of World War II. And then I started reading, right now I'm reading autobiographies.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You have an interest in war and those kinds of activities around the world, huh?
well, you know, if you study war and you study the rich people, they use the military to get what they want. I mean, war and economics, it's usually the war is fought over resources.
Mm-hmm. But you don't worry with money anyhow because you're rich, are you? Aren't you?
Well, let's just say that I was conservative with my money because I was raised by two people that went through the Depression
Uh-huh.
and World War II, one in the Red Cross, one in the Navy. And they both worked. My dad was a butcher, my mom was in retail sales. And they taught me a work ethic and they taught me how to save money.
Mm-hmm. You have brothers and sisters?
I have 4 sisters. I have 2 living and 2 are gone now.
Uh-huh. Did they like you? Do they like you?
One likes me and one doesn't. It's funny, the one that lives in Oregon doesn't like me, but the one that lives in Green Valley, Arizona, likes me.
Uh-huh.
So.
She didn't get to know you pretty good, did she?
Oh, yeah, she know me pretty good.
Do you have a partner nowadays? Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, one of those?
I'm in between relationships, but I like somebody who I used to work with, and I'm probably will hopefully be dating her soon.
Really?
Yes.
Don't mention her name, but you can tell her how you feel about her. Look in that camera and tell her how you feel about her.
I think she knows how I feel about her. She sent me a Christmas card, so I'm going to send her something back.
What's that?
She sent me a Christmas card. She's still working.
Uh-huh. Okay. You have any children?
No.
All right. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations. Any memberships you hold?
No.
You still work for the CIA?
No. I have never worked for the CIA.
How about any persons from the past or alive today that you look up to or particularly admire? Any names come to mind for you?
Muhammad Ali.
Why Muhammad Ali?
Well, he was one of my heroes growing up. He took a stand against the United States government. The war in Vietnam was illegal and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They stripped him of his title for that. He lost 3.5 years of his prime boxing ability in and out of the ring, and regained his championship by beating George Foreman in Zaire,
Mm-hmm.
and proved that the American people that the war really was wrong and unjust. Just like the war in Iraq was wrong and unjust.
Okay.
And illegal.
Yeah. So is he a model for how you model your life and how your thinking is about political and social issues, Muhammad Ali?
Somewhat. If you're disciplined and you have a goal, you reach out and achieve it. I mean, he came from small means, and he had a goal, and he you know, as of age 14, he started training for boxing. Won the gold medal in the light heavyweight division in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, won the title 3 times.
Yeah. You have an encyclopedic memory.
On some topics, on other topics, I'm pretty vague.
Oh, anybody alive today that you particularly dislike?
Former president and vice president.
Will you name them?
George W. Bush,
Uh-huh.
Dick Cheney,
Okay.
and Rumsfeld.
Why do you dislike those guys? They're American, aren't they?
Well, they're American, but let's just say the election in 2000 wasn't what it should have been. When you lose the electoral vote, when you lose the popular vote, and have to go to the Supreme Court after, you know, they had that problem with Chad. Remember that lady with the hand lens looking at the back of a ballot in Florida, who happened to be governor at the time with Jeb Bush?
Uh-huh.
They lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. And the whole point after 9/11 was to go in and get Saddam Hussein and, you know, stop the Taliban. It wasn't about, oh, by the way, here's Iraq, we'll just go in there.
Why do they want to get Saddam Hussein?
Well, bin Laden.
Bin Laden, yes.
But Saddam Hussein, you know, the CIA helped put him in power in '68.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that. And it was all about oil. Somehow there was a double cross.
Weren't they spreading democracy and trying to save that country from the ravages of what was going on
A
there?
vicious dictator?
Yeah.
Well, that was the guise of going in with weapons of mass destruction. I'm sure Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld in their spare time are still looking for weapons of mass destruction, which they never found.
You think so?
Yeah.
Who else that you dislike or you disliked before? What do you think of Putin? in Russia?
Putin, just basically a used car salesman. He's the head of the KGB.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's still trying to hang on power. He's having a hard time because the price of oil is so low.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the country is not doing well financially.
Overall, is he a good guy or a bad guy?
Well, if you were living in Russia, you would say he's a good guy. I mean, he tries. I mean, he's you know, he's Putin.
Mm-hmm. What about Obama? What do you think about talking about world leaders or leaders of countries?
I like President Obama.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he came in office in a very difficult time.
Uh-huh.
We were sliding into what they called the Great Recession, which was only the finance guys were getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the middle class wasn't getting hurt at all. I mean, on the railroad, we kept moving freight. Freight kept moving. We kept selling grain overseas. It was just the finance guys, suddenly there was a little hiccup in, you know, the money wasn't flowing in.
Okay. So let's take a little early break here before we go into the main part of the show, because Pat's got so much stuff he's going to talk about, and I got a lot of questions for you. You're such a delight to hang out with. And I should know better to compare wits with you, because you're way ahead of me. Your
Not
brain
really.
is so sharp. It's so narrow, considering space travel and war and those kinds of things.
I had a train master tell me once, my supervisor, that I wasn't the sharpest tool in the tool shed.
He didn't know. But anyhow, we've got this ongoing question I keep asking you. Since we go to the same gym, you and I. And I say, well, what do you want to talk about, Pat? And you always say, well, whatever you want to talk about. And then I'd come around the left side again and ask you the same question, and you'd give me a similar answer. And even now, I'm not sure what you've decided we're going to talk about. Will you decide right now before the camera while it's going on what we're going to talk about tonight?
Well, you know, we can talk about how far the American society has descended. 50 years ago right now, down on Launch Complex 19, they were getting ready to launch Gemini 6. Because Gemini 7 was already in orbit with Frank Borman and Jim Lovell, and Gemini 6 was Wally Schirra and Tom Stafford. Wally Schirra, by the way, was the only astronaut that flew all Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo.
We're talking about space travel now,
Right now.
and astronaut in that period of time.
Well, rendezvous was very important because up to that point, you know, you had three modes of getting to the moon. You had direct ascent, which was going to be the big powerful booster, going to cost a lot of money, wasn't going to work. You had Earth orbit rendezvous, where you were going to send up one object and then send another one the next day, rendezvous, and that's what Project Constellation was going to try to do until Obama killed the space program, manned space program anyway, and then go to the moon. And then lunar orbit rendezvous, where you had the command module and the LEM. So we had never done a rendezvous before, and it was very important that it was one of the main stepping stones of getting to the moon, and why we had Project Gemini. It was the bridge between Mercury and Apollo. And they did it in 4.5 orbits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when you come back again, are you going to be an astronaut?
I'd like to be an astronaut, but I'm too old now. I mean, I wasn't lucky enough to be born in 1930, because most of the people that were born in 1930 were the ones that walked on the moon. They were the first college graduates of their family. And all the people that in Apollo, Mercury, and Gemini was from rural middle America. Most of their parents were farmers hardworking, and they all used the military as a way to get their education. They're all test pilots.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Exciting time. I mean, you worked on the Atlas booster. A lot of people don't know that, but Don worked on the Atlas booster.
Yeah, and I
Our
cut
first
my fingers
ICBM.
with one of those that self-destructed on the pad.
Yeah, it happens a lot, the gas bag.
Yeah. You know so much about that stuff.
And we're still flying the Atlas today, but it's the Atlas IV now. It's no longer thin-skinned. It doesn't have to use nitrogen gas as for its rigidity.
I've got this poem that I wrote some days ago, and it's hanging over my head, and I'm wondering when I'm going to read it for you to see what you think. But I think I'll do it right now so it doesn't lurk in the background when you're going to read the poem. It's titled, A Sense of Foreboding. A Sense of Foreboding. The dictionary definition of foreboding is of an ominous significance foretelling of harm or difficulty. That's the dictionary definition. Foreboding seems to be the predominant sensing I unexpectedly experienced yesterday while driving home on the gray, wet, rainy 217. That's a highway here in Oregon. In my lane directly ahead of me, not one but two hangman's nooses gently bounced and swayed from the rear of the superstructure of the pickup just ahead of me. Or was the two nooses simply the result of the pickup owner's innocently fashioning a personal terror weapon to do his part in the ongoing war on terror? Or is my sense of foreboding a reoccurrence of my PTSD originally caused by the New Orleans police? Or is the global use of terror to defend against terror, as in Paris and San Bernardino, the cause of my sense of foreboding? And I wonder, what do you think of that?
Scary. Did that make you nervous? A hangman's noose?
Foreboding. It scared me. And to think, so we talk about acts of terror going on, and it isn't just terror against Muslims and those kinds of people, but there's an ongoing terror existing in this country today that still has a flavor of what it was many, many years ago before the civil rights era. And San Bernardino, that affair happening there, people said that it'll never happen here in San Bernardino, maybe in Paris or Washington, D.C. or New York. And then someone said the other day before I saw this, they said, well, nothing will happen here in Portland. And there's an indication of the kinds of characters that will do that kind of activity, which is a terror act. And I got very nervous because during the Watts riot, I disappeared for 3 days because I was afraid I was going to be taken for one of those that they hate. I didn't want to, because I saw some mixed blood people like me being chased by black people, and I'm part black. So there's all sorts of things in the background working for me. So this prompted me to write this poem about a sense of foreboding. Do you have a sense of foreboding?
Well, America's fragmented. The American dream didn't happen. You know, if a submarine goes below test depth, which is the deepest depth that a submarine can operate under, and crush depth is test depth plus 400 feet and implodes, this country is imploding.
You think so?
Yes, I do.
Well, why do you say that?
You have class warfare, you have race warfare. It's underlying, but it's bubbling. It's like water boiling up to the surface. It's oozing up to the surface. People are frustrated. America's no longer number one anymore. We have competition in the world. And, you know, America is like a business, and they run it like a business. And there's a lot of holes in the business plan right now. Things aren't working out the way they want it.
What about the number of bases that America has around the world? Aren't they number one in bases and
we're number one in everything. When the Republicans tell you that we need to rebuild the military, they're lying to you. Lying. We have more bombers than anybody else in the world. We have more cargo ships than anybody else in the world, the Navy. We have more cruise missiles than anybody else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have more drones flying around right now than anybody else in the world. We have more fighter planes. We have more people involved in the military. We are not weak on defense.
Then why are we building more defense and more weapons?
It's all a scare. Remember Eisenhower, his last speech as president, he said, beware of the military-industrial complex. You know, in my time, we had the bomber gap. Then in Kennedy, we had the missile gap. Reagan brought the window of vulnerability. There's always some type of crisis up there that's man-made, you know, and people buy into it. Boy, if you're weak on defense, you're weak on American. You must be anti-American. What's going on here?
Why do they create these crises?
Well, it's because they create the crisis because a lot of those jobs happen to be in Congress and Senators' district, and so you got to keep the war machine going. There's an old saying in Arlington Cemetery, when they're burying bodies in Arlington Cemetery, business is good. And right now, business is good.
Oh man, you sound very optimistic about America's future.
I think America probably is 9 years away from some type of financial hiccup that's going to make the Great Recession in 2008 look weak. I think we're going to have a major correction. We could end up going into a depression.
Wow. Is this why we have austerity today?
Well, what do you call prosperity? You basically have three classes. You have the extreme rich that are doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
You have the people that are barely struggling, and then you have the what I call the working poor, the middle class. I was part of the working poor. You know, and they keep getting squeezed. Our taxes goes up, and business taxes go down. Remember Pfizer last week, they decided to merge with that pharmaceutical company in Ireland to escape taxes. They call it inversion.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Republicans are really good to be stumping the campaign trail that, hey, you know, we need to change this, what's going on. But they don't have enough grit and backbone to change the tax code, which our own senator years ago in 1986, Bob Packwood was the one, the head a senator on the commission there that rewrote the tax laws and gave them most of the loopholes. Good old Bob.
Well, isn't that democracy?
Well, it depends. Here, I want to show you this picture. This is in the.
Mm-hmm.
Can you flash on this?
Yeah, just
real
hold it
quick?
up there and they'll get to it.
That's the Republicans' point of view. This is in USA Today.
Yeah, he's going to get to it there.
Well.
Tired and poor don't pull well with our donor base. No Syrian refugees. Wow.
You know, that sums it all up. And then you got our good brothers here. These guys are buying influence.
The Koch group.
Koch brothers.
Oh.
$129 million for somebody who's worth $44 billion. It's just like you and I going to happy hour.
Are you against the free enterprise?
I'm all for competition and free enterprise. I'm not for
Aren't they for free enterprise?
they're buying influence.
Uh-huh.
You know? And he's got both hands up like this. He's got Mitch McConnell, head of the Senate. He's a Republican. He's over here. You know, he sips the Kool-Aid.
Uh-huh.
And then we have, you know, Paul Ryan, the new Speaker of the House. He's scary because, you know, he's gulping the Kool-Aid. And the bill that's going to come up next week is going to be more tax breaks for corporation and the rich, and middle class is going to pay for it.
Well, they do create jobs, don't they?
What kind of jobs? When you have basic jobs of that don't have any benefits?
Okay.
Yes.
Are humans approaching near extinction?
Yes. There's too many of us on the planet. We're in each other's way. And the burning of coal is, you know, it's like a chemistry class. The burning of putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. This is the kind of weather you get when you do that. The Pacific Ocean is extremely warm. We have El Nino. You know, we should be having snow on the ground right now, not 52-degree weather, windy and rainy. And then you get that air inversion up over Mount Hood, which causes the snowpack to melt.
So you believe that there's such a thing as global warming or climate change?
Yes.
What about those people who claim that experts say that that's a hoax, that isn't true?
Well, it is true. I mean, you can, if you've been in this country, in the Northwest the last 20 years, you can see the change in the weather. I mean, we just had the hottest summer and year. 2015 will be the hottest year that the world has ever seen. And I know the Republicans back big business, and you know, they have their interests, but if they don't believe it, if they have a big house, just close the garage door 3/4 ways and read the paper in and turn on your car and see what happens when you get too much CO2 in the atmosphere. You don't wake up.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to wake up.
Don't the Democrats support this kind of activity and the profit motive and capitalism?
Depends on which district there is. If they have coal fields in their district, yeah, obviously they're for big business.
Is there a difference in who runs the government nowadays so far, the Democrats or Republicans?
I think it's pretty much transparent. I think the best thing anybody can do is start voting out all incumbents.
Well, then who do they vote in?
New people that have new ideas.
Where are we going to get the new people?
Well, we have new immigrants coming to this country every day. I mean, we're a melting pot. I think maybe it's time our Latino brothers and sisters, they're starting to work their way up. Hopefully we can get some Native American Indians in here that've been fighting terrorism since 1492.
How can they work their way up when they don't have the money to buy the political process?
Just go out and campaign door to door.
Everybody should campaign?
Yeah, it happens. Elizabeth Warren did it. And I think she signed your book, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts.
Yeah, yeah.
She went against a big money campaign and she won. She went out there, she went door to door. She had her influence. I mean, some people call it the Tea Party, but she had her backers. They went door to door and they campaigned. She won the debate. She worked hard, and she's a really good senator.
Isn't Bernie Sanders an alternative to the Republicans and Democrats? But
Well,
he's a Democrat too, isn't he?
He's a Democrat, yeah. Bernie Sanders, he's slipping in the polls. He's more of a socialist. You can't give it away. You have to earn it. Can't get free education.
You're talking about being elected, and you don't get elected unless you have the money to
Buy influence?
to buy influence, or to buy the votes and do what's required to have the people be fooled into electing you. And then people believe that they've had a choice, and they don't really have a choice.
You're pretty much 3/4 right, yes. They get the candidate that they want. But you just got to work harder. You just got to work harder. You got to believe in yourself. You go out and have a goal. You pound the streets. You go door to door.
What are you doing to make things different?
Right now, I'm just relaxing. I'm thinking seriously of getting involved in a campaign next year because when Obama first ran for president, I went door to door. They gave me Lake Oswego.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Lake No Negro?
I got a lot of doors
Lake
shut.
Oswego.
Yeah, I got a lot of doors shut in my face.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like I was back in the 9th grade trying to sell Fuller Brush when people were trying to eat dinner.
I didn't know you were that involved in the political process even at that time.
I thought it was something to do, and I got frustrated with what I saw. You know, I had 8 years of lies and deceit.
What are you going to do in this campaign season to make a difference?
I'll probably get organized, go door to door, and do something because I like that. I like interacting with people.
You're going to be campaigning for Trump?
No. No.
He's
not my guy.
What is Trump up to? What's he doing?
You know, when Trump first started, I kind of looked at that, and he was kind of like putting some color on the plate. You know, he's making things colorful. But as he got going, you can see, you know, the dark side of his personality. I mean, he's a billionaire. I don't think he really wants the job. He likes the attention and the adulation. I mean, and you know, he can outspend anybody. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need private funding. He can buy his own airtime, fly around with his bad haircut and his yellow teeth.
Doesn't that suggest that we should get money out of the political process?
Don't we already? When you do your taxes, you can make a donation.
Is that going to be enough to counteract what the Koch brothers and the super rich can do to buy the election?
No, because about, 4 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled on the First Amendment about that you can change how much money. I mean, basically, that was probably the worst thing they ever did. And it you know, before that, you know, Senator McCain, when he was running in 2000, he was preaching campaign finance. reform.
Yeah.
They all preach it,
John
and then when it
McCain.
gets time, they don't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we need some type of finance reform. Eventually, you're going to have the rich owning everything, and the people in the middle just barely getting by, but they have no retirement. And when that happens, you have that gap. We've had it throughout history. You have it in Greece right now. It collapses. And that's what's going to happen in this country in about 10 years. We're going to be in a financial collapse.
And then what will happen with this financial collapse?
Well, they'll either
martial law, revolution?
We'll try to do martial law. It's not going to work in this country. We're too big.
Uh-huh.
Too many open spaces.
So things are revolutions come and go, and revolts occur, and things change. And is the American empire, on the verge of collapsing?
Yes, it's on shaky ground, and they created most of it.
Yeah.
When you have the 0.1% running everything, and we're all basically they want to go back to the Gilded Society, and we're all what I call, working
the
slaves.
Golden Age, yeah, yeah. That's kind of sad to think about that. But how do we head that off?
Pardon?
How do we head that off? That trend, that direction that we're heading, the American empire, diminishing and folding and fading. What's going to replace it?
I have no idea, but I hopefully won't be around to see it since I'm 60 years old. I mean, my life expectancy is about 10 years left, and I'm going to check out.
No.
Go ahead.
Are we really approaching World War III, as some people speculate nowadays, with what's going on the world scene, and particularly in the Middle East, and what's going on with Russia being surrounded by America and the coalition of the willing, and being sure that Putin doesn't have enough power to interfere with American domination of the rest of the world?
Russia has always been surrounded by us.
Yeah.
After World War II.
It seems like America has been leading the charge to be more assertive and to tighten the noose around Russia.
They've been doing it since World War II.
Mm-hmm. So, what's Putin going to do in response?
He can. His country's broke. It's basically it's living on fumes.
So we're not heading for World War III?
No.
Wow.
I mean, I think the Cuban Missile Crisis kind of solved that. They realized we almost came to the blink, and they really want to do it. Because after you do the first exchange, all you're doing is moving the rubble around. Nobody wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you don't remember this, but in '72, we sent Mariner 9 and 10 to Mars. Mariner 10 didn't make it because it couldn't. The shroud, the nose cone, when the Atlas, the Centaur separated from it didn't open up, so they just let it drift towards the sun. But Mariner 9, once it got around Mars, Mars was in a big, huge dust storm. And that's where they came up with the term the nuclear winter. And it took like 6 months for the storm to settle down so they could start seeing the craters and the canyons of Mars. That changed everybody's opinion of a nuclear exchange. So no, we're not going to have World War III. Cooler heads will prevail.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. What's the real reason for the war on terror? America's war on terror. What's the real reason for that?
America, I know that's the new thing. I mean, because of technology, and we're the leading arms seller in the world, and due to the way we can, during World War II, we didn't have jets. Piston planes could only go like 2,000 miles. They were pretty clunky, and the old DC-6 and the Clippers. Anyhow, they didn't have the technology to come over here, but now anybody can come over. You get on a jet anywhere if you pass the screening and you go. You should do a program on how you can buy a handgun. Just get your little GoPro and go down to any pawn shop and buy a couple of handguns. Can't get on a no-tariff fly zone, but you can buy a handgun in this country.
So that's what you think of the war on terror. That's what it's about.
Well, you have a lot of people, well, I not say a lot, but a few people that are frustrated with the system, and usually when people go in and shoot, they go into people who are unarmed, unexpecting, like grade schools, colleges, theaters, and they shoot at people that can't shoot back.
So is America's use of drones in the third world, is that a war on terror?
It's a war on terror, and I think you could say ISIS or other people fighting back. This is the way they fight back. We go over with a drone. They come over with a drone that costs probably $25 million. They fire a missile, I believe. They go around $300,000 a pop. They buy an assault rifle, an AK-47, for about $75 and open up.
And they have another situation like we had in San Bernardino.
Yeah,
California.
we had one in Roseburg. We've had two in Portland recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's.
Someone suggests that the war on terror should be accurately named, and it should be called War on Anyone Resisting American Hegemony.
Well, America has always found a way to overpower the weak. Just ask American Indians, they'll tell you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. To what extent do racism, sexism, and classism exist in America today? And I think you touched on that earlier. Does that exist in America today, those three things?
Some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that at this stage and age, the younger people is going to cleanse out, the older thinking of past generations. I mean, the generation coming up, they're more acceptable to, back in the 60s, we started having interracial relationships. It wasn't looked down anymore. Now we're having, in the last 20 years, same-sex relationships has become common. They passed some laws. Thank God the Supreme Court said it's okay. It should always have been okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's trying to be in a loving, nurturing relationship, but you have certain corridors that got left behind financially due to the lack of education, and they're frustrated.
A right-wing coup. Is there a right-wing coup on the horizon before you pass away?
I hope not. We've already had a few.
Do you think if Trump wins the election for the presidency, would that be essentially a coup?
I would hope that people with cooler heads, when they go into the ballot box, will see through a lot of it's a facade and not vote him in.
The polls don't indicate that now.
Yeah, it's still a year away, though. I mean, we haven't even gotten to primaries yet. And it's really amazing. They have the Iowa caucus, which I don't know if you know how a caucus runs. You just have a group of people get together, it's kind of like a Tupperware party. And then he decides he doesn't want to get president. And then media comes in and they go, oh my God, 12 people decided out of a couple thousand that Trump's our guy or something. It's like, and, rates go up.
Where those people come from who makes this decision? Are those people put in there, planted, or are they people like you or me, or are they people who...
I never get invited, so I'm sure they're planted.
Yeah. Okay. Is privacy an anachronism today? Privacy in America? Personal privacy? Is it by the wayside? Has it disappeared?
It depends on how much technology you use. The more technology you use, you open yourself up. If you want more privacy, use less electronic devices. That's why, in Pennsylvania, they have no idea what the Amish are doing, or the Amish. And they have some of the most productive farms in the world. If they don't use technology, they have no idea what they're doing.
Do you think the Amish are interested in the American empire expanding or creating conflicts in the Middle East?
They don't care who wins. They just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
Sell their goods.
Okay.
They live very simplistically, very healthy too.
Why don't you become an Amish?
If I get a day, why not?
What are your thoughts about Obama?
I like Obama. He's been dealt with a difficult hand. He came in here, we were sliding, thanks to some of what happened in the recession of 2008 was because Bill Clinton abolished the Glass-Steagall Act, which prevented banks from doing toxic loans. I mean, those are the things we learned from the Great Depression.
There's a few decisions like that have a powerful import.
You have to understand, we had some scandals back in Reagan too. the go-go years where they start raping and stealing American pension funds from different companies so they can advance and sell and have major mergers. People want their money right now, quick money, but they don't care 10 years from now from the consequences of it. Where's mine? I want it right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how do people got to think that way and believe that way?
Greed.
Mm. Has the media have anything to do with people's opinions and how they're behaving?
Yeah, they sell an idea of what you should be at. You know, you should have that big house.
Who owns the media?
Oh, small corporations that make a lot of money. And they control things. They, you know, poor Dan Rather got beat up. You saw the movie. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, excellent movie. What's the title of it again?
I can't think of it right now. I know Kate Blanchett's in it.
Yeah. Hillary, what do you think of Hillary? I think you really like Hillary, don't you?
She's the only candidate that has the experience to be president. She's been a senator. She was wife to a president. She was Secretary of State. She has contacts around the world. She's tough. You know, she tried to, when she was Bill Clinton's wife, First Lady, tried to get a fairly decent health plan in this country and got beat up, but she knows how the process works.
Do you think she would close Guantanamo?
Aren't they phasing that out now? They're supposed to already have it phased out. So it's still up and running.
Yeah.
God, you know, there's some bad people in there that did some bad things. Maybe you should just put them in a barge, set them out in the ocean, let the sharks get them. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but there's some people are just, you know, they're kind of like you can't cure a pedophile. You know, you just can't. You can surgically remove things, and they still in their mind are that way. Some people just hate us and hate for some reason.
They just hate us? There's no reason for them to hate us?
Well, you know, hate comes from you. It's a learned behavior, you know.
It's also a genetic given. The people to protect their life and their children. What about the people who we see on television now and then on CNN, where their family was destroyed by drones, and all those people? Then we're creating more reaction to American hegemony and American domination of the world by our war on terror.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Uh-huh.
It's like hitting the hornets now, so it just keeps, you know, stirring the pot.
So if it comes down to, in the election, your choice is Hillary on one side and Carson on the other side, who would you vote for?
Well, you know, I hate to tell you this, but I'd vote for Hillary.
Okay. Would you vote for Putin if you were running?
No. He's head of the KGB. That should tell you something. The KGB never forgets either.
Yeah. Tell us some stories about your adventures working for the railroad, so that the viewers would be interested in hearing something that's juicy or wouldn't be available without divulging too many secrets and getting yourself on some list or something.
You know, I loved my time with the railroad. I grew up, my grandparents were my first, because both my parents worked. They lived at the entrance of the Brooklyn train yard, which is Southern Pacific Yard in Portland. I was lucky enough my grandfather was always a city policeman, never owned a car, never been in an airplane. He was born in Ellis Island. Came out west on the Empire Builder, which was the Great Northern's Class 1. All the main railroads had their own Class 1 passenger service. You know, that's how they sold the railroad. And I was able to take some trips around the United States in the late 50s, early 60s before urbanization, where, you know, you left the city, you were out in the country. And I've always loved trains. From the day I was born, I loved being around trains. And so it wasn't really work for me. I had a blast. I mean, it was like the great adventure, but my body got old and it was time to move on. I earned my pension. Mm-hmm. But I had a wonderful time. I mean, I saw sunrises and sunsets in the gorge that not even a postcard, you can't even imagine. And the people, 98% of them were hardworking, very dedicated. You had about 2% were some unique, strong personalities. I miss some of those guys. I mean, and women. I mean, you know, I had one woman that I went to junior high with. She's hated my guts for 53 years. She retired a year before I did, thank God. Castration was legal. She'd probably do it on me.
Yeah.
But I had a great time. I mean, there was the challenge of moving the nation's freight. I mean, you went out there and you had to take the train from point A to point B. Sometimes it didn't always work. And, you know, I had to think in your bag of tricks, how do I get out of this one and solve this problem? It was fun. It was exciting.
Yeah, can you tell me of an instance that illustrates what you're talking about right now? Something unexpected happens, and you are going to have to be responsible for fixing it. Any particular incident, a situation comes up? Like, I'm thinking of the movies now, and that train was going double the speed.
Oh, indestructible, whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in real life. We have precautions for that.
But they do happen in real life, on a rare occasion.
Well, they have mess ups. I mean, you have little derailments sometimes.
You ever have one when you were on duty?
I had a miscue when I first hired out, but you know, we fixed it and moved on. It's a very humbling experience because you know, it's like, whoa, you know, I didn't know they could do that. Most of my incidents were with strong personalities. You know, when I hired out, we still had a lot of the World War II, Korea, Vietnam guys working. And they were hard chargers. I mean, they were tough. I mean, we didn't have human resources back then. And I got harassed quite a bit, but some of it was fun. You know, they all thought I was gay when I hired out. I only weighed 128 pounds. Shaved like once a week. They couldn't understand why I really loved my job, and they hated their job. And the railroad's a unique industry because if they have both people that come in from management from college and also people that work through the ranks. And if you work hard, you know, you're not disturbing at work and you show up on time and don't damage the equipment, pass all your tests, they'll promote you. It's pretty, still a great place to work. I do miss the action. You know, something about going 60 miles an hour down the main line. It's fun.
60 miles an hour. That's my next question. What's wrong with the American railroad system compared to the high-speed railroad systems in China and other places in the world?
Well, first of all, they don't move the freight that we do. I mean, their stuff is basically light rail. I mean, our average car empty is 30 tons. Empty. We're dealing in trains 15, 16,000 tons. Some of our trains on the Transcon that runs from Chicago to LA, they're double stacked, they're 2 miles long, and if they were single stacked, which instead of putting one on top of the other, they'd be 4 miles long. We run them at 70 miles an hour.
And that's okay?
Yeah, it's good. We have good high-speed rail. Amtrak has never gotten the money. If they're ever going to get high-speed rail, and if you go to Europe or Japan, the freight trains do not run on the same high-speed rail that the passenger trains run. It's different rail.
Okay, I didn't even think about that.
Okay, if you remember the pie graph, you know, on the transportation graph, which they just now, after 5 years, they've decided to actually put some money into it because they keep kicking the can down because we need to raise gas tax. Rail transportation gets about that much. Aviation gets 3/4 of the pie.
So you don't think America's falling behind by not being able to move freight faster?
America moves freight very fast. America moves passengers very slow. We're the most efficient railroads in the world. Nobody can beat it.
In other countries of the world, they don't move freight faster than America does?
Well, look how big America is. It's 3,000 miles long, right?
Yeah.
Look how small Germany is compared to us. It's the same size of Oregon, basically. You know, so their numbers look better. I mean, we're talking Transcon here. I mean, when we get a train together at T6 and we send it to Chicago, we'll have it there in 42 hours. You got to climb 3 mountain ranges to get there.
Okay.
We're fast. We're very efficient.
Are we going to have high-speed rail for passengers in this country?
No.
We won't?
Not with gas prices low. People don't want to pay for it. I mean, they don't get the same subsidy. When Amtrak's only getting $350 million a year, and airlines before 9/11 were getting $30 billion subsidy. Who pays for the airport? You do, every time you make your mortgage payment. And every time they need a bond, suddenly, oh, per 1,000 square feet at home, we're going to charge you an extra $1.66. You know, all the airlines do is pay for a landing fee and a lease fee. They don't pay for the maintenance of it.
Mm-hmm.
You pay for the new Doppler radar they want to put in. You pay for it. It's a hidden tax. You pay on a gas tax. You pay it when you go to the airline. You pay for the ticket, and then you have a takeoff fee and a landing fee when you get to the other place.
So you're in charge of this whole operation. What would you do to change things and have them be better for the average
I'd cut all
passenger?
I'd cut all corporate welfare. I'd have change the tax code. I mean, I'd get rid of the American Farm Bill, which companies like ConAgra and Monsanto get the bulk of it. You know what's really sad in this state is you can go to any marijuana distributing store that's legal. You know more about where your marijuana came from than where your piece of lettuce came from in the grocery store.
And why is that?
Because Monsanto, we had the bill here last fall that we tried to pass, and they, out-of-state influence money, voted campaign to vote that down.
What was the bill?
That was to know how much toxicity was in your produce and where it came from.
Uh-huh.
You know, we have one company that's having an E. coli breakout right now, and that usually comes from inside the digestive system of a cow.
So it sounds like you don't like Monsanto.
You know, they started out after World War II as a fertilizer company, and look what they verged into.
Uh-huh.
Now I buy all organic produce. It costs me more, and I kind of know where it comes from. I think it's important.
How about go ahead.
I think a lot of the reasons why people break it down is cancer is what they eat, what they breathe, environment they live in.
Wow.
It's all interconnected. Sink good sods, Don.
Before our time runs out, let's have a few words about water and how important water is nowadays.
Water is very important because we're 93.7% water, the rest is calcium.
Uh-huh.
You know, water is very important, and unfortunately the burning of coal is putting a lot of mercury in the soil and into the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're having flooding conditions around here because we've taken away the vegetation for development. You know, and you got pavement, and you have asphalt, and that's oil base. I mean, the asphalt is, and it runs into the streams, goes to the fish, and you eat the fish, and you know, it's the whole cycle of life.
What do you think of having to buy water in a bottle rather than having clean water available like we used to have 10, 20, or 30 years ago?
I think it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it's very sad. I want to plug this book real quick.
Yeah. You want to talk about that book?
Yeah, I want to plug this book real quick. Sheila Hamilton wrote this book. This happened in Portland here a couple years ago. And it's a love story, and it's a story of mental illness. Her first husband committed suicide, and you should have her on your program because you and her would have a lovely conversation. And I'm giving this out as Christmas presents. It's all the things we never knew, and it's a very powerful book. You can read it in a couple hours. There's a lot of information in there. It's very emotional, and it's the best book I've read all year.
That's for me?
Yes, this is your Christmas present, and it matches your turquoise shirt.
Thank you, Pat. I really am grateful. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes, you didn't say I never gave you anything besides a hard time.
Don't stop giving me a hard time.
All right.
So, anything we didn't cover, there's 1,000 things to cover now, and I'm feeling kind of slow this evening because I didn't have a bite to eat before I came on the show. So we're not covering all the things I wanted to cover. So in the next couple of minutes, is anything you want to tell the viewers that we didn't talk about?
Well, I was telling you why America's imploding.
Yeah.
Because we have no space program. When I was growing up, we were going somewhere. We were going to the moon. We had goals. People would dream about what's out there. And right now we're in each other's way, and people are disillusioned because I remember seeing a thing on ABC. I watched it in sociology too, called "What If the Dream Comes True?" Harry Reasoner, remember Harry Reasoner?
Oh yeah.
From ABC and CBS. What happened was they interviewed this man. He was working for one of the big three corporations, the auto industry, and he was middle management, had a nice house, had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Wife was a little frustrated. So he got a raise. So, you know, money was supposed to free him from this. So what did he do? He bought a bigger house. And he moved out in the country, so he had more commute. So he was spending more time commuting. He was frustrated from that. He was working harder. He was actually making less because he was paying more taxes. And he couldn't figure out why he wasn't happy. I mean, material things doesn't buy happiness. You need to be happy in your heart. It comes from within. You know, you go down the street and everybody's got their headphones on, their cell phones, they don't communicate anymore. It's one of the reasons why I retired from the railroad. I had an incident a week before I retired where we were at a major interlocking, I can't say which one.
Okay.
And we were waiting for a train to clear, and we had an indication, like a traffic light. It changed from one color to another. Both my engineer and my helper would like this, using their cell phones.
Really?
So I counted off 5 minutes, and he didn't look up.
5 minutes?
5
They didn't
minutes. I
look
said,
up.
gentlemen, are you ready to move the train? And we're ready to go here. The yard wants us. Oh, phones, they disconnected their phone, isolated, and put them down in their grips, and away we went.
So sounds like that's a good story to end our interview with.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I retired.
Yeah.
Time for me to go. I was part of the old breed, not the new breed.
Thanks for coming on again.
Well, thanks for
Yeah,
having me,
sure.
Don. And next time we'll violate
Next
some other
time I'll
conversation.
have a bite to eat before I start my show and not go fading on you.
Get that
So
cheeseburger.
it's time for us to say goodnight. And we have a few public service announcements that we can put up. I want to remind you about the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Without the ACLU, our civil liberties in this country would be down the tubes completely. So look up the ACLU, and there's their website. And I also want to tell you about ending corporate personhood. That's terribly important. Our state of democracy is really deteriorating really fast because corporations have been declared as persons by the Supreme Court, and money is speech. And those are two crazy lies. And we're going to have to replace the Supreme Court, I think, in order to have America go back to what it was intended to be. Do we have another one? Oh, I got to thank you for watching. And remember KFC. Oh, yes. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly. And charitable, especially. To you, too.
Well, thank you.
And you, too. And you, too. And you, too, Mr. E. Thank you, and good night.